You should really strap that up so that doesn't happen.
3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to the channel, and today we have a Ford Escape 2016 that we're going to be changing the front brakes and calipers on. So if this interests you and you have one of these cars, check it out. So the Ford Escape we have here is got some excessive noise with the front brakes here, and just a lot of brake dust, but that could be just because of some cheap brake pads. So we're going to change these out today, and we'll get some nice ceramic pads on here, and some nice rotors, nice smooth new rotors. So our braking problem should be resolved once we get this done. Pretty basic standard brake caliper, not much to it, but I'll go through the steps here and what you need to do, and we'll get started. So first step is really just taking off this little dust cap that's on the back of the caliper pin bolt. It's really kind of just wedged in there. They just pop out like that. Very easy to get out. Once we get both of those out, we'll go ahead and pop the second one out down here at the bottom. Once we get this one out, then it clears them up for, that's what they look like right there, clears them up for being able to access the bolts themselves. So the bolts on these just take a 7mm Allen head. I just have sockets, which makes it a lot easier, but they basically just slide up in here like that, and then you can release them. So just like any other bolt, there should not be any, well, not any, but a lot of tension on these things, so they should break pretty easily, or break free, I should say. Once you get them moving, they're pretty easy to turn. I'm going to get them out of the way as much as possible, and then I may even put a screwdriver up here, push them back just a little bit further. By pushing them back further, it allows that caliper bracket to, or not the caliper bracket, but the caliper itself to kind of not get caught on anything. So once you get those out of the way, I'm just going to stick a little screwdriver up in here. See if I can show you guys what it looks like. So right in there is the bolt end, and I'm just going to push that back just a little bit. So I can get out, so I can get it out of the road. And they should move fairly easily. Once I get it back far enough, what I like to do is just push this bolt out. I'm going to pull it all the way out eventually anyhow here and look at it, so it should not be a problem. Sometimes you got to spin it a little bit as you press out on it, so we're going to put this back in there. These are pretty tight, so this one could definitely use cleaned up just a little bit. Start to see it move as I turn it. I'm kind of allowing it to pull back a little bit. Now that I got both of those free, at least loose and out of the road, what I'm gonna do is, there's a front bracket on here. That front bracket needs released because you can't take this caliper off until you get this bracket off. So what we're gonna do is pry that off. Like if you can, if what I'm doing is I'm prying this back just a little bit because there's a little ear right here that kind of sits inside there. Once you get that out of the way, it'll just pop up. And then you basically just want to pull this top off so that it spins, and then that one comes right out. So they're not too difficult to figure out. Next thing I want to do, I'm just going to relieve just a little bit of pressure on the pistons. That'll just make taking this caliper off a lot easier. So I'm just going to put my C-clamp right here, press on just a little bit. And that's enough to kind of help free this caliper bracket, or I'm sorry, caliper itself. Once you get that free, you can stick your little pry bar on the bottom, and you should be able to work it back and forth to get this off. You can see it's already moving quite a bit. So once you get it off enough, it should pop off of there. Sometimes they're tight. That's why I put that C-clamp on there, because if you don't put that C-clamp on there, it sure makes it a lot harder. So we're just going to set that up there for now, out of the road. And we'll get our caliper bracket itself off. There's a couple bolts on the back side here. Those need to come off. Those are just an 18 millimeter. And if you have a smaller impact like this little Milwaukee, I love this thing. It fits in some really nice tight spots. You can just put it right on the back of the bolt and spin it right off. I'll show you those bolts here, what they look like. So there's the bolts. There's a big one right there, and then a big one right there. So we're just going to get those off, and once you get those off, that bracket will come right out. Well, that's a tight one, that's for sure. Yeah, that one came right out. That other one was definitely a little tighter. So we'll pull this bracket off, set it to the side for now. And then now that that bracket's off, this rotor is free. Now, yours you may have to bang a little bit to get off. I noticed whenever I took the pads off that mine kind of came right off. So I know mine's really easy to get off. You should really strap that up so that doesn't happen. But that was a good catch. I'm just going to wiggle this thing off. There we go. And then we're going to set this to the side as well. So one thing I like to do while I'm in here is clean this hub up a little bit. And that just keeps that brake rotor from ever seizing onto this hub. Makes it a lot easier to get off later on. You don't have to beat it off or anything like that. It'll kind of just slide off. So I'm just going to take my my little wire brush here and just kind of clean this up a little bit. And then just an extra step I like to do, I'll put never seize on this as well. That just keeps it from seizing basically to this hub. Makes it, again, a lot easier to get off later on. That's pretty good. Doesn't have to be perfect. All I was trying to do is knock some of that surface rust off. And then I'm going to take some never seize and kind of just coat this a little bit. It's not coat it because never seize goes a long way. So I'm just going to spread it as thin as possible around this backing plate here in the hub, and then right around here as well. we're going to go ahead and throw the new rotor back on. And then what I'm going to do is actually put a lug nut on here. That'll hold that brake rotor in the right spot for me, and it makes things so much easier to line up. And then that keeps that in place for me. So now we just have to deal with the caliper itself. First thing I'm going to do is take this pad off. Depending on how old they are, how long they've been on there, you might have to pry them off a little bit. I'm going to leave this pad on here, and then that gives me something to put that C-clamp against without messing up the piston at all. So I'm just going to put this on here. Make sure you're not against any of your lines or fittings or anything on the backside. This one's got a nice flat back to it, so it's pretty easy just to kind of slide it on there. I'm just going to compress it. It shouldn't take much force at all to push this piston in. Make sure you take off your reservoir cap, your brake fluid reservoir cap. That'll give that fluid a place to go. If somebody had really topped it off and put too much in it, otherwise you'll just be fighting with the pressure itself. There we are. It's all the way solid now, so I'm just going to take this back loose. And I'll go ahead and pop this pad off. This one should be fairly easy to come off. It's just got some metal ears on the back of it. It should slide right off. So the next step while I'm in here is I'm just going to clean these bolts up. They should press right out. I'm going to take a wire brush and just really lightly take off all this extra stuff that's on there, just so it's nice and smooth again. So I'm just going to take and, like I said, just slightly clean it. And basically I'm just looking for a nice, smooth, shiny surface when I'm all done here. So I'm going to go ahead and repeat that with the other one, get it all cleaned up. Now we can start some more of the reassembly here. The next thing that you would put back on would be the bracket, but before I put this bracket on, I'm going to take a wire brush and just clean up the edges here, basically where those pads slide. It's a good idea to get all this old brake dust, everything off of it, and then they'll slide a lot easier, at least for a while. Obviously, these go a long ways between brake changes, so it builds up again, but definitely helps starting out with nice, clean, fresh metal there. So the bracket goes on pretty much the same way it came off. Once those are started, then we'll tighten them up here a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and torque these down. Calls for 129 foot-pounds. So that's what we're going to do. We'll set these with a torque wrench, and then we'll move on to the caliper. Okay, those are set, and let's get our brake pads on the caliper, and we'll get that set in place. Once we get the outside pad in, we'll do the inside pad, and basically just take the prongs and slide it back into the caliper itself, and it should just clip in there. There we go. You want it to be a pretty tight fit, so you may have to collapse those just a little bit with your fingers as you push it in, but otherwise that should take care of it. Next, we're going to go ahead and just slide our caliper back over top. So it should fit against there pretty flush. Then we're going to put our caliper pins in. We'll get those set in place. Really thin coating. Just enough to coat the outside with a really thin layer. And then you put it back in, it should slide super easy. So we're just going to tighten those up. We get them good here. I'm going to pull this back over so you guys can see. So we're just going to go ahead and get these started, and then we'll torque them down to what they need to be. The caliper pin bolts are much less torque than the actual bracket. So these call for 21 foot-pounds, so that's what we'll go ahead and torque these down to. Get these set. Does not take much, especially on a bigger torque wrench. Okay, next we're going to put this anti-rattle bracket back on there. New one that came with the pads. This is probably the most frustrating part. I don't know, there's probably a couple different ways you can put this on here, but I'm going to kind of just put it on the reverse of how it came off. So I'm going to clip this bottom in first. Make sure that that bottom ear is fully seated. So this one in here has to be in that groove correctly. And you'll know because as you start putting pressure backwards, it won't pop back out. Like I said, there's a wee little lip in there that this actually rides on, this little U part of this clip. So now I'm going to come back on the other side here so you guys can see a little bit better. And I want to try to get this top one on up here. So I think I can do it by just pushing back on it with my fingers until it gets past it. But see, you want to make sure that this bottom one's in too. So you don't want to pull it out too far, or it'll pull that ear all the way over here and you'll have a tough time getting it. So you kind of just want to get it all at the same time. And then once you get it in here, just give it another push inwards just to make sure that it's locked in tight. And it's not coming off. I mean, I can't pull it back off. So I know that everything's on there tight. So that bracket can be really, really tricky, but like I said, if you start at this bottom, get this bottom clipped in first, and then just kind of work your way in without pulling it out on that too far so that it clips in at the same time. So just a few last things you don't want to forget. Make sure you put your dust caps back on the back of your caliper pin boots, because you don't want anything to get up in those, any dirt or any gunk or anything like that. So make sure you don't forget to put those in there. And I cannot find that one. There it is. So that one's in there good. And then at this point you can take your lug off, because you're going to put your tire back on. Well, that wraps this video up. We just have to repeat the process on the other side here. It's exactly identical. And once we do that, we'll throw the wheels back on, torque the lug nuts down, and we should be all set. Hey, if you found this video helpful, make sure you give it a like and consider subscribing. I do a lot of different videos, anything from garage work to outdoors, tractor type work. Just check out my channel, and I appreciate everybody that's been watching and all my current subscribers. Until the next one, guys, take care.